All right, let's just jump right in. Have you ever stopped to think about what makes you, well, you? I'm not talking about your body or the wiring in your brain. I'm talking about that inner movie, right? The one that's always playing in your head, your actual experience of being alive. That's what philosophers call the hard problem of consciousness. And today, we're going to stare right into the massive, baffling gap at the center of it all.
So picture this. Imagine a robot. A perfect one. It looks, talks, and acts exactly like a human. It can laugh at your jokes. It can even cry during a sad movie. It does everything a conscious person does. But here's the million-dollar question. Is there anything actually going on inside? Does it truly feel sad, or is it just, running a sadness.exe program? This question right here is the key that unlocks this entire mystery.
Okay, so to even begin to tackle that robot question, we've got to get our heads around this big idea in philosophy called functionalism. And honestly, it's not as scary as it sounds. In a nutshell, functionalism says that a mental state, like pain, isn't about what it's made of, but about what it does. Its function. It's caused by something, like stubbing your toe, and it causes you to do something, like yell ouch and maybe kick the table. It's kind of like software. Think about it. It doesn't matter if your favorite app is running on an iPhone or an Android, as long as it does the same thing, right? Functionalism says the mind is the same way.
But, and this is a huge but, if functionalism is right, if it's all just about inputs and outputs, then we stumble into a massive, really confusing problem. A problem so deep that it has its own name, the explanatory gap.
And this is the absolute heart of the matter, captured perfectly by the philosopher Joseph Levine. He basically said, look, we can map out every single neuron. We can track every chemical reaction, every electrical pulse in the brain. We could have a perfect, complete blueprint of the whole physical system. But why does any of that feel like something from the inside? Why does red look red? Why does pain actually hurt? Why isn't all of this incredible processing just happening in the dark with no subjective experience attached at all? That's the question.
And this really lays it all out, crystal clear. On one side of the gap, you have the physical facts, the stuff science can see and measure. Neurons firing, C fibers activating, objective third-person data. But on the other side, that's your private inner world, the subjective experience, not the signal of pain, but the actual sting of it, the redness of red. And the explanatory gap, well, it's the giant uncrossable chasm between these two lists. How on earth do you get from a bunch of firing neurons on the left to a genuine feeling on the right? Nobody knows.
Now, this massive gap has basically split philosophers and scientists into two major camps. They all tend to agree that the mind is physical, but boy, do they disagree on how to handle this crazy mystery. All right, so let's meet the two teams trying to solve this thing. First up, you have Type A physicalism, with folks like Daniel Dennett as the star players. Their strategy? It's bold. They say that powerful feeling of a deep mystery, it's just an illusion, a trick our brain plays on us. They argue that once we fully understand all the brain's complex functions, this so-called hard problem will just, poof, it'll disappear. But then you've got Type B physicalism, with Joseph Levine on the roster. They say, hold on a second. That gap feels real because it is real, but it's a gap in our knowledge, not in reality itself. There's a real reason why things feel the way they do. We just haven't discovered the science to explain it, yet.
So that's the fundamental disagreement right there. Is our deepest, most private experience of consciousness just a powerful, convincing illusion, or is it a totally real phenomenon that we just don't have the tools to explain yet?
Okay, just when you think you're ready to pick a side, the philosophers come in and throw a giant wrench into the whole machine. They do this with a wild thought experiment designed to push this whole idea of functionalism to its absolute limit. It's called the absent qualia challenge.
So qualia, that's just the fancy philosopher's word for the what-it's-like quality of an experience. The redness of red, the taste of chocolate, the sting of pain. So the absent qualia argument asks this really simple but mind-bending question. Could you build a system that does everything a conscious mind does, but without any of the actual feeling? A perfect functional copy, but with nobody home?
And the most famous example of this is the China brain thought experiment from philosopher Ned Block. I want you to really try and visualize this. Step 1, imagine the entire population of China, over 1 billion people, agrees to participate. Each person's job is to act like a single neuron. Step 2, they're all given little radios and a massive rulebook that tells them exactly when to send signals to each other, perfectly mimicking the way neurons fire in a real brain. Step 3, the entire system,
The nation as a whole now perfectly replicates the functional state of your brain right now. It gets information from the outside world, and it produces behavior, like talking or moving.
Okay, you with me? Here comes the killer question. If this giant China brain system metaphorically stubs its toe, does the entire nation of China, as a single conscious being, now feel pain? I mean, our gut reaction is to just scream, "No way! That's absurd!" It seems crazy to think that this collection of people communicating with radios suddenly has its own private subjective feeling of pain. But here's the kicker. According to pure functionalism, it has to. If it performs the function of a mind, it is a mind. And that's the dilemma. The thought experiment paints a picture of something that fits the functional definition of a mind, but intuitively seems to have zero actual consciousness.
Now, I know this all might sound like a weird philosophical game, the China brain, absent qualia, but trust me, the stakes here could not be higher. How we answer this puzzle has huge real-world consequences for our future and for how we understand ourselves.
Think about it. In AI, this is the question. Can we ever build a machine that is truly conscious, that genuinely feels joy or suffering? Or will we only ever be able to build incredibly sophisticated puppets that are just faking it? And what about science itself? Is our own awareness, the thing most real to us, just fundamentally beyond the reach of scientific explanation? This gets to the heart of who we are. Are we just unbelievably complex biological machines, or is there something more? Is your entire inner world, your thoughts, your feelings, your memories, just a convenient illusion cooked up by your brain, or is it a fundamental feature of reality?
So, in the end, we're left staring into this gap with this incredible choice. Is consciousness some fundamental feature of the universe, like gravity or electromagnetism, that we just haven't discovered yet? Or is our precious inner world, the feeling of being you, simply the most beautiful and complex illusion ever created by a few pounds of gray matter? The gap is still there, and what's on the other side? Well, that remains the greatest mystery of all.